From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality.
Bring it on, baby!
Fasten your seatbelt.
Welcome back to Meet Bridget, a show that sheds light on the often untold young adult stories of successful women from all types of backgrounds and in all sorts of careers. This show is an extension of our confidence coaching service for young women. I'm Keshiia Rosenberg, and I co-host this show alongside my best friend and Meet Bridget founder, Asha Gabriel. We're currently in season 5 of our podcast, which is crazy and very, very cool. And we're in the business of sharing unique perspectives and the myriad of different journeys that it takes for each of our successful female guests to get to where they are and how they've grown through and in spite of and because of their life experiences. So I'm really excited today. I'm bringing a Houston native, right? Houston native Caley Crawford onto our show. She returned to her roots in Houston after having already established a very fulfilling theater career in New York and around the country, performing in Broadway, on national tours, and in regional theater productions. She's a proud member of Actors Equity, and she graduated from the Boston Conservatory with a BFA in musical theater. She's performed with Stratford Playhouse and was a Spartaner during her time at Stratford. She started her dance career at the ripe young age of 4 before advancing to train with Joffrey Ballet and Broadway theater projects in high school. She's got a multitude of performance credits, like way too many to list here, but she's worked alongside many a prestigious choreographer and director, and she can be heard singing and tapping on the original Broadway cast recording of Holiday Inn. She's performed in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and it's incredible. So aside from her theater and dance career, she's also been a leader in the fitness franchising space. She's worked with Row House, Exponential Fitness, and Myro, just to name a few. And she's built a career out of not just being a stellar performer, and having these stellar performances, but with a career of leadership transformation and really being integral to organizational success. So that is a huge mouthful. I'm so excited to get into your journey. I know you've mentioned that you've really taken what some might call the road less traveled for your particular field. And so it's going to be a really fun one to get into. I want to take it back to the beginning and talk a little bit about your roots and, what it was like growing up in Houston and Texas and where you went from there. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here. So I grew up in Texas. I'm the youngest of 4. So there's 4 siblings, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Yeah.
I lived basically in the house that I grew up in all through when I was born to graduation. So lots of stability in that way. Our community was super strong here. It was, at the time, I didn't realize it, but definitely a bubble, which I didn't realize until after I left and went to Boston for school. I was like, oh, there's life outside of Texas. Okay, great. Growing up, I played sports. I had brothers, so I played sports, and then my sister started dance, which made me want to start dance. And luckily, I had some other kind of girlfriends in the neighborhood that were around my ripe age of 3 and 4 years old that were taking ballet and tap at a local studio. And my sister ended up quitting dance pretty early, but I stayed with it, and the studio ended up becoming like a second home for me. They didn't just do dance, they also did theater. So that's where I got to do my first musical, which was the musical of Annie. I was too young to be an orphan, and the orphans are pretty young. So I was too young to be an orphan. So I was just like a Hooverite baby that somebody carried on stage.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And then, grew up doing, eventually got out of sports when I got to middle school, realized that, oh, I'm like not an A team player. I'm a B team and sometimes C team. Right. So, although I loved basketball and volleyball, I was a little bit better at volleyball, because it was not such a contact sport. I realized when I got to middle school, I was like, oh, I don't love like the aggressive contact of basketball. And I just couldn't keep up. So I ended up shifting and just doing theater and dance at that point. And then eventually ended up really focusing in on theater, still dance because it's part of it, but less kind of strict, commercial dance and more into theater. So yeah, I had a great upbringing. I think my parents did an amazing job of, we had a big family, and I wasn't super close to my brothers because they were much older. So there was there's a year and a half gap between me and my sister, and then a 6-year gap between the next boy, and then a year and a half between them. But I was super close to my sister. We fought all the time, but it's okay. We get along really well now.
You guys are really close now.
Yeah, we're like polar opposites, but it works. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the sister dynamic. I'm the oldest of 4, so and by a long shot, there's 15 years between myself and my youngest brother, and it's really cute because he's just entering adulthood now, and he's like very, very sweet. And so I love a close family dynamic. Where what was your support system like with your parents? I mean, was everyone really involved with like going to the games and going to the dance recitals and stuff, or was this just like because it sounds like this is really something that you took inspiration from your sister, but then really made it your own, and you were kind of the only one in your family, it sounds like, that really stuck with it.
Yeah. Let me be clear. My sister lasted like 1 year at the studio. So she was gone by the time I turned 5. She was gone. Yeah. She ended up dancing elsewhere, but it quickly wasn't her thing. No, my parents were always very supportive of me pursuing really like whatever activity I wanted to do.
Yeah.
My dad worked a lot. And so my mom was really the one that took me to every lesson, every practice. Like really when I got serious about dance and theater and like did the Joffrey Ballet summer camp, it was like a month-long summer camp in New York. And she was there and like, just made the whole thing happen for me. I mean, my dad did as well. Obviously, financially, I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. But she was really kind of the one by my side doing that. And then, even, gosh, I think back in high school, she would like drive me every week to a voice lesson that was like 45 minutes away. It was so expensive. And, I look back now and I'm like, did I really need that voice teacher? Right? Like, did it really make that big of a difference? We probably could have had this one and it would have been just fine and saved a lot of time and money. But anyway, I think, she was super supportive. And then even when it got to deciding on colleges, so I knew that I wanted to do musical theater. My parents felt very strongly about me doing a BFA program and not like a strict, conservatory program that doesn't have a BFA option. And also they felt strongly about me not going directly to New York. They wanted me to go to college. But I ended up, it just so happened that the school that I like got into and really wanted to go to was also like the most expensive. And, my dad helped me a lot with it. And had I not been the youngest, I would definitely not have been able to do that. My other siblings went to state schools and I was the youngest. And so it was like the last one to go off.
Yeah.
And so they were able to kind of, make some space for me to do that, which I'm super grateful for. So,
yeah, I think it's kind of funny. And I love that you bring this up because I remember being the oldest, my dad would be like, when major financial decisions had to come up, they were always really supportive, but much more conservative, I think, is with the first child. And then, I think it's kind of a known fact that as you get down the line, there's a little bit like the restrictions are looser, like parents have kind of settled into like being comfortable being parents. And so yeah, my dad would definitely be like, I have, there's three other kids I got to think about, 3 other colleges. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get it, especially now. So I mean, it's really cool to hear from your perspective, just the acknowledgement of that little special gift that the last kid gets, and that's really cool. So it sounds like dance was always going to be the North Star for you. I mean, you started dancing at 4, and then I'm assuming that you just really enjoyed it to keep sticking with it, and then your parents probably also started to recognize your love and affinity for dancing, and probably a lot of talent that was growing out of the consistency. So was there ever anything else? Like, was there ever any other option of what you were going to be when you quote unquote grew up, or were you just always like, this is it?
Yeah, honestly, so I since I recently took over the studio that I danced in, I have been going through like old photos because my former teacher kept everything. So like so many old photos, playbills from like the shows that we did when I was in like elementary school. And there was a playbill, I think it was from, I was probably in maybe 2nd or 3rd grade. And I wrote in the bio that I wanted to be, my dream job would be to play Peggy Sawyer in 42nd Street on Broadway, which didn't end up happening. It hit Broadway before I got there. But I did end up playing it in high school. So I played it in high school. I played Peggy Sawyer in high school. So yeah, I mean, from a very young age, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Now with that said, I also was like, growing up, I was like definitely a tomboy. I had like a straight up bowl cut. I don't know why my mom did that, but she did.
It's like the standard.
Maybe I cut my hair. Who knows? Yeah. And my dance teacher, Miss Susie, to this day will remind me that like in, elementary school, I was missing recital rehearsals, like mandatory rehearsals to go to softball practice. Right. So, so I definitely had like a tomboy spirit in me all through elementary school. And then, but dance was just always, it was like the pulse. It was like the thing that just was really consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing that passion because, I mean, clearly that's the thread here. So I want to get into a little bit about the pipeline from high school to the professional dance world. You mentioned that your parents were very adamant that you did a college program, specifically something with a BFA. Can you talk a little bit about what the different options might have been for you at the time, like what you were weighing? And then, obviously your parents were encouraging a specific route.
Yeah. So with musical theater schools and acting schools and even dance as well, all of them require auditions. So some of them are more rigid on the, GPA that you have going in, like, Michigan is a really well-known musical theater school. And obviously it's really hard to get in. You have to have like a certain level of academics to get in. So there were a handful of schools that I wanted to go to, and I auditioned for 13. So I applied to 13 different schools, which at the time I thought was like so much, but now as I'm working with high schoolers that are looking to do this for a profession and go to school for it, they're auditioning for like way more than that, which is crazy. But it also just shows how many programs have like really developed over the years. I think musical theater just in the last like 10 years, I mean, even just in the last year with Wicked has been, it's like really becoming something that people see that they can do.
As an option.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was a whole process. I had to audition for all of the schools, and it's not just about getting in from a grade perspective. You have to like be what they're looking for from a talent and skill perspective. And the theater world's tough. I mean, you could be, you could have an amazing voice, you could dance so well, and you could be too short.
Yeah.
like they've already filled their spot for females under 5'5", right? Like you just don't even know. So many things that are like out of your control. But at the same time, it's a good lesson because that's how the real world is in the theater space too, right? I mean, if you're replacing somebody in a show and you're not the same size and you don't fit the costume, then you may not get the job, right? Just depends.
It sounds a little tough. I mean, so 13 auditions, physical auditions for 13 different schools. I mean, that's really competitive in and of itself. I mean, and I hear what you're saying. I can't imagine what it's like, especially now with just how competitive the college landscape is in general, but then to have to perform on top of it. What was that like? Like, what was the preparation like? And were you nervous, scared? Like, it sounds very intense.
Yeah, I was nervous, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's like dictating your future. It's like if I mess this audition up, then I won't get into that school. Yeah, I think it was definitely a little bit of a wake up call for me because, you know, growing up, if you are immersed in really any activity, right, at an early age, and you continue on that journey, even if it's a sport, right, you're probably going to be one of the better ones in high school, right? Because there's so many kids that don't start until late elementary or even middle school. So if you start young enough, then you'll probably be like somewhere at the top, right? In whatever that area is. And so I definitely experienced that. You know, there were really good people at our school. There were people that were totally better than me in many areas in the theater and dance space. But I think because I had started singing early, I had done shows early, and I kept with my dance like very rigorously. I was able to kind of do a little bit of everything. So I was like pretty well-rounded as a performer. I wasn't just a singer or just a dancer. And so I ended up I got a lot of parts. Like I got leading roles when I was a junior and a senior, which as a junior at the time was like pretty unheard of. Very few people got leading roles as a junior. They usually saved them for seniors. And I just really lucked out with like the shows that they did and just the place that I was in. And I say luck, but I mean, I had been working for a long time, right? And so I was just in a place where I was the right fit at the time for those roles. So I was used to getting things. And then I auditioned for all these colleges. And in some cases, I didn't get in academically. Yeah. And then in other cases, I didn't get in because of my audition, right?
Yeah.
And I just wasn't what they were looking for from a performance standpoint. You know, I could go deep into why I think that's the case, but there were definitely things, looking back, there were things that I lacked that I didn't think were important at the time, but looking back, like if I could go back and do it again, I would focus more on these things, right?
Yeah.
It was definitely a wake-up call for me. Yeah.
Are there any specifics that you can name?
Yeah, like just an example, and this may not make sense to people that don't sing, but I had a raspy voice growing up, it was like I don't know. I don't know how my voice sounds now. You can't really hear yourself talk, but it was pretty raspy. Through high school, I think experienced a bit of like acid reflux, which caused my vocal cords to swell and just some irritation to happen. So my voice was lower. So I always sang alto, and I was like what you would call a belter. So I would sing like in my chest voice, like low. I would not sing high soprano stuff. And more recently, I've gotten back into voice lessons and like really discovered that I actually do have this pretty rich soprano voice that's just been completely untapped my entire life, because I just kind of put myself in a box of like, oh, I can't sing that stuff. I don't sing that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I only do this. So I got really good at singing this thing, right? But there's so much more. Like I didn't have a range. And so when you audition for college, you have to sing two things. You sing one that's more like belty, and then you have to sing a classical soprano piece, which I had like not done at all, really. And yeah, if I could go back, I would totally like I would take that box that I put myself in and throw it away.
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't just me, right? I think just there were potentially mentors that I had that also kind of helped push me into that box, right? Based off
Yeah,
of some
they
of the
tell
roles I
you.
got when I was little. But like I would always play boy characters when I was in
Mhm.
elementary school. I played like Schroeder. I played the Tin Man. I played the Jester
Yeah.
in Once Upon a Mattress. I played like all these boy characters. Oh, Mungo Jerry and Cats, which is like the boy twin. But it's just because my voice was low. But it kind of put this filter on me
Yeah.
for myself where I thought, oh, I'm not capable of singing high. So I just
Mhm.
need to get really good at this one little thing. And honestly, like had I really worked on my soprano at the age that other kids were working on it, um, my theater career would be different. I totally believe that. There
Yeah.
are roles that I would have gotten because I would have been able to sing them because I would have been doing it for longer, right?
Isn't it? It's so crazy to be, I mean, time is a thief and like retrospect is everything, but it's, it's just an observation. You can't do anything with it anymore other than learn. But it is really interesting when you take a look back at some of these things, like you said. And it's not like anyone had malintentions, I'm sure, but I think just the experience of, being mentored and working at a craft or being a creative person, there are things that you start to tell yourself based on what you're naturally adept at or what other
Mhm.
people see in you that really are formative to what direction you end up going into. And I actually really love that as an adult, you've gone back into voice lessons and like you're tapping into like this whole other part of your talent register. Um, that's really, really fun to hear and really great to hear and very self-aware. Um, it had to have been really difficult when you got the no's from various schools. And then this other layer of why you're getting the no's, like whether it's because it's something as seemingly trite as being like over 5'4" or, just not having the high voice register. I mean, I feel like the landscape of theater and like even film and entertainment, like you see the landscape shift between like what's in or what's out pretty frequently.
Mhm.
Would you say that that is the same in the dance and theater world? And how did you manage, like, how did you keep going at that time, when you were getting these no's? Because I feel like that
Yeah.
age, you're so, at least for me in my mind's eye, like, that's a very sensitive age and where you're like trying to establish your place in the world. And so those no's feel really, really significant at the time.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's two-part answer. So
Mhm.
in regards to like how the landscape of the theater and dance world kind of shifts similar to
Mhm.
like TV film, it totally does. It does and it doesn't. I think the foundational elements remain the same, like
Mhm.
the skills that you need remain the same, but the style changes, right?
Yeah.
So vocal styles change. If you look at like classic musical theater, it's a lot of you have to be able to sing soprano, right? And
Mhm.
then more contemporary musical theater, it's like a lot of high mixing, which is like you do still need soprano in order to mix properly, but it sounds different. It's a different sound, right? There's no riffs in Oklahoma the musical, right? Like there's no vocal riffs, but like in Wicked there is, right? Or in Legally
Yeah.
Blonde there is.
Mhm.
And so it's learning a different style. I think the overall foundational technique is the same, but the style is different. Same thing with dance, right? Classic musical theater, you have to have really strong ballet technique and everything's turned out and on releve and on your tiptoes. And
Mhm.
then in more contemporary musical theater, you see more hip hop styles, more street jazz. So it's ultimately, again, you still will succeed more at street jazz if you have ballet, but
Yeah.
it just changes, it just shifts it a little bit. I think, which is a whole nother thing. I feel like these days, people just want to learn they see the result that they want, like they see
Mhm.
the street jazz or the hip hop and they just want
Mhm.
to learn that and they just want to focus on that as opposed to like learning other styles that are then going to support that, which is a whole nother issue. But which I
No, I
see
love this
nowadays,
because
it's like
it's so true. I feel like just learning other techniques just in you can apply this to anything, right? Like not just dance, but like the professional world or like creative, whatever. I feel like you're so right. Like the more you infuse, the more you learn, the more enriched the product is. Like it doesn't just have to be like getting to the end goal doesn't just require a beeline toward that. I think that the end product is so much richer when you have all of these other experiences and learnings from a huge swath of different things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I could come up with so many examples, but it's a theme I'm seeing these days and maybe it's a social media thing, right? Where kids they're seeing a finished product and they're just wanting to do that, as opposed to recognizing that the person that's doing that has spent years practicing all of these things that allows them to do that, right? So yeah, in regards to the failure and getting told no at like the age where really formative years, right? When you're a senior in high school.
You're super impressionable.
Yeah, I think it was hard. It was hard. It was really the first time that I'd been told no in that capacity, right? I had just gotten so much, and I was the youngest, right? So I had gotten so much. And at the time, I can acknowledge now that why I got so many things was because I was the youngest. But at the time I didn't realize, right? I was like too naive to like recognize that around me.
You're your parents' baby.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you know what you're like with your babies now. I would give
Yes. Yeah, now I get it. But it was tough. I think one of the hardest parts was that girls that my very good friends that were auditioning for the same shows I was in high school, that I was getting parts over, were getting into schools that I was not getting into. So that was really, really hard for me. It was just like it was a wake up call of me being like, wait a second, just because I got that part in high school does not mean I'm better than them. And this school recognized that, right? Like that maybe I'm not. Maybe we're equal, right? And I just got this and they got this, right? Maybe we're just different. And so I think there was probably it was definitely an ego bruise that I had, right? But I think it's like, looking back, I'm like, good. I'm glad I didn't get into those schools, right? I'm glad they got into those schools, because I needed a little like slap in the face. I needed to realize that I wasn't this big fish in this small pond, right? That is actually like a really big ocean, and I need to like fight for, I need to work hard for my spot and not take it for granted. So, but yeah, I did get into a couple schools. Some of them were like a straight acting school. And then, the other one, I don't remember exactly how many. Another one was musical theater, but the dance program wasn't that strong. And then Boston Conservatory had a really strong dance program. It was less of a college experience because it's conservatory. So I spent most of my time doing theater and dance classes, as opposed to like our liberal arts classes were very, it was like not a total college experience, right? We didn't have sports teams. We didn't have sororities or anything like that. Which, looking back, it's such a blessing we didn't, because I was like I don't know what the right word is. I was really adaptable, and which is a good thing and a really bad thing. And I totally think if I would have gone to a state school or even a college with a musical theater program that had sororities and like
a robust social scene,
things, I think I would have been completely swept away by that and not focused at all on what I was there to do. So I'm really grateful for the experience that I did have at BOCO.
Oh, it's very cool to hear this journey, because it's so different from, I think, what a lot of other people experience, or even like, the like if people are into movies about dancers and stuff, like it's a totally different world and ecosystem, and there's similarities to like the college experience, like you said, but then there's like this whole world where you can go to school and just be completely immersed in your craft and like not have this robust social scene or be going out and maybe that's what's right for certain people. it certainly sounds like that was the choice for you. So so you get into your program, I'm sure it was very rigorous because everything sounds like it was very dance and theater focused. Like that was your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, basically.
Yeah.
What was like the end goal? Like, did you go through this program thinking, okay, I'm going to get out of this, I'm going to be like shoot for Broadway, I'm going to do auditions like, for theater and film and for musicals, or were you just kind of like rolling with the punches and going with the experience?
No, there's definitely an end goal. So when you're at the end of your senior year, they do a showcase where they have
Mhm.
agents come and you do a showcase in New York. And so the goal is to get an agent out of that.
Mhm.
And then from there, start auditioning. So move directly to New York after college, which I did. And then just like get a survival job and start auditioning and just do the grind. And it was a grind.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Because you also made the jump from what you describe as your Houston bubble, which in my head, like I've never been to Houston, but Texas is like known for communities and warmth and like people being together, and Texas is very proud of Texas, and as it should be. And then you go to Boston, which is a whole other, animal, and you're in this program, and then you go to New York, which is, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of. So
Yeah.
what was that jungle like for you? What was navigating that like after college?
Yeah, I think it goes pretty deep, I would say, but I don't know if we have enough time. But but I think the biggest thing was I wanted, like, I was like chasing a dream, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when I went to college, it was like me getting out of the generational cycle of staying in where you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had so many people in our area, and I like laugh. I'm like pitching myself right now because I never thought I would have moved back to Texas. Nonetheless, Houston, nonetheless, the same zip code that I lived in, and literally my daughter is going to go to the same elementary school that I went to. So, and I'm the laughing stock of the family because I'm like the one that was so firm on like, I'm getting out, I'm independent. And
Yeah.
my daughter is the only grandkid that's actually going to the same elementary school
Yeah.
out of all the kids.
But it's not a
So
bad thing. Sometimes
no,
a
and it's not.
return to
And
the roots is what you need, and it's
yes,
not like you didn't get the big adventure out of it, which we're going to
yes,
get
that's
into.
true. That's true. Yeah. But it's very common to do that here,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people, it's just a great community, right? So a lot of
Mhm.
people go to state school and they come back and they literally move back to the same area. Maybe they
Mhm.
move to a more trendy part of Houston, and then eventually when they have kids, they move back to the same area. So even at the dance studio, like so many of the moms will comment on how, oh, like this person went to high school at Stratford. Oh, I went to Stratford.
Mhm.
Oh, I went to. There's like so many people that 20 years ago were in high school together, and now their kids are growing up together.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's amazing. But at the time, I didn't really appreciate it. I just felt
Mhm.
like it was this bubble that I needed to get out of, and
Mhm.
I didn't want to do that. Right. I had like dreams that I wanted to like chase for and accomplish, and so yeah, there was definitely a sense of independence and kind of breaking away. I also feel like with the bubble, though there is support, there's
Mhm.
also like everybody's in your business, like
Mhm.
everybody knows everything. And so I really enjoyed that, nobody knew what Boston
Yeah.
Conservatory was. Like Boston was its own thing. I could walk down the street and like nobody would know who I am. So
Yeah.
there was a pleasure in that of like just kind of becoming my own version, right? And good and bad, I think, to a degree. But I
Yeah, you
mentioned
get to
I'm
create your
adaptable.
own
So
world. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So, New York, you did some time in the fitness industry. I mean, I would argue it's all the fitness industry. Dance is very, very physically rigorous, and you're doing not just dance, but dance and theater. So, you go to New York, you're looking to get booked for different roles and looking for an agent.
hmm
How let's talk a little bit about what that was like for you, and then how you made your transition into the fitness world, or foray into it?
Yeah. So my first survival job was working at Lululemon, which was an amazing job in terms of like being like surrounding myself with really like-minded, great people. A really bad job in terms of actually making money because I would just turn around and spend it. I was so bad. Our discount was so great, and so it just was so tempting,
They
right?
hook you.
Yeah, man. And then I quickly got into personal training. So a friend of mine had become a personal trainer at Equinox. So I went into their program and then ended up getting introduced to CrossFit, started doing CrossFit, fell in love with it, started coaching CrossFit. And then I helped open the second location for EVF, which was Deborah and Eric Froelic's CrossFit gym, which they opened Row House right on top of it.
Wow.
So it's just like, I mean, I literally can go back and say like, oh, had I not met this person, then I would not have been introduced to CrossFit. And had I not met this person at CrossFit, then I wouldn't have been introduced to EVF. Right. And so like, there's so many like linchpins in my life that I look at and I'm like, man, that's like, that
worked out
day
for
was
me.
such a pivotal day. And some of those like moments that I look back on, I don't know if I can think of an exact one right now, but like some of them were maybe like me meeting somebody when I wasn't in a great place. Right. And so I look back on that and I'm like, oh, I was in a really bad spot and I met this person and like, that was my way out. Like that was, I needed to be in that bad spot in order to meet this person to then find this, right. For this door to be open. So,
did you recognize it at the time? Like, were you in
no.
a bad situation? And, like, I'd love to have an example, but like, was there ever a time where you were like, this doesn't feel right? And then like you meet somebody and you're like, okay, this is the direction I need to go.
I think at the time, I don't know if I was super aware of it. I think I look back on it. Like an example would be, I was doing a show. So I had left, it was after Row House had opened and I was coaching CrossFit and teaching rowing classes and then also auditioning. So like just the grind. And
Just
that's
a
like
lot,
a whole other conversation is like what that is. Cause you're basically auditioning if you're non-union, which I wasn't union for the first part of my career. You spend 6 to 7 hours at an audition that you're not getting paid for. And you may not even get seen. Like you're waiting in line starting at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And then they release you at 2 and they say, oh, we're not gonna have time for you today. And you're like, what? Right. So it is a grind. It is a grind. And then you have to go to work. Right. So anyway, but if you stick with it long enough, then you'll get out of that. But, yeah, I had left the fitness job to go to a show. And, when I was in the middle of that show, it was like a 4-month contract. I was going through a breakup and it was like this moment where I was realizing like, oh, I've been so focused on CrossFit that I haven't been focused on theater. And so I like I was just kind of like blowing up everything in my life to like refocus in on like what I'm here to do. Cause I was like competing in CrossFit competitions locally, when they started to be a thing. And, my body had changed a little bit because of it. I was like constantly sore. And so I like wasn't able to dance as well as I could. And so it was just, and my relationship was kind of like mixed into that. So anyway, so it was like a wake up call for me. So I had decided that I was going to break up. And then when I got back to New York after the contract, I was going to quit CrossFit. I was not going to coach for CrossFit anymore. And I had even gone so far as to say, I'm not going to coach fitness. I'm done with fitness because I had kind of like put it all in the same bucket.
Yeah.
And I remember Deborah reaching out to me, the co-founder of Row House and EVF. And she was my boss at the time. And she was like, let's just get coffee, right? Let's just get coffee and chat. Cause I had like really taken a break for a few weeks at that point and not done any fitness. I don't even remember what job I had at the time or what I was looking for. I was like, maybe even going to go into like restaurant work, which I had promised myself when I was very little that I would like never do anything that I didn't love. I was like, whatever you do, if you have a survival job, it has to be something that you love. And so in my mind, I was like, I will never be a waiter. Right. but I had like at that time, like I was looking at options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she got coffee with me, and we just kind of had like a heart to heart, and basically just came to the realization that like I didn't necessarily need to give up on fitness entirely,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe CrossFit just wasn't the right, maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't the right, modality for me at that time in my career, right? And so I ended up, she basically had me stay with Row House, but not with CrossFit, which then like that moment I came back to Row House. Then they opened a second location. I was the head coach. Then
Yeah.
Expo happened. I went to California. It's like, had that coffee date, had she not reached out, because at that time I was done. I like totally walked
Yeah.
away. Had she not reached out and just the way that she approached the conversation, everything was so great that I like that was a really pivotal moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's incredible,
Yes.
which is why she is who she is, right?
Yeah.
I really, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but it's like so meaningful for you to share this part of your journey with us, because so much of what you've done up to this point in your story has been, you've had to be fairly self-reliant. Like you've had a great support system, you've had great teachers, you went to a great program, but dance and theater, you have to like create the discipline within yourself to keep going. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
incredible that like, you start getting into this adult grind where, like you said, it's a survival job. You have to make money because you have to sustain like the 6 to 8 hours that you're not making money and you're doing your auditions. And so I think that the ages in which you were doing this add, challenge to it, because you're like figuring out relationships and where you're living and what you want to do. And like, I never want to go back to Houston kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, you start to get to this place where you realize like, okay, the survival job and like the life that I've been creating maybe isn't authentically aligned with what my goals are and what my
Mm-hmm.
dreams and hopes are. And it's really interesting to hear you say, like, even as a young kid, you never wanted to do something that you didn't feel passionate about. And it's so true. It's like you really, you really can. I think what I'm trying to say is like you really hit the nail on. If you are really, really passionate about something like dance and like theater, the survival job doesn't necessarily have to be the restaurant job. It could be like the Lululemon. It could be like in the fitness world, and you can start to like reshift things back, because like the reality
Mm-hmm.
is life is hard. Like everyone needs to do something to survive, but like you'd already like whether it was subconsciously, like you'd already figured out that like you were needing to kind of get everything into this lane of physicality of like
Mm-hmm.
my goal is dance and theater. And so cool that Deborah was really integral to like that, come to Jesus moment before you
Yeah.
re-shifted away. So you end up working in the fitness space as a lead coach and everything. And I'm sure that was, I mean, your resume speaks for itself, right? Like you're a rock star. When, at what point were you like, okay, like I'm going to go back to Houston?
Well, many years happened between that
Yeah.
and now, but so I guess like let me back up and give a little bit of
Yeah.
timeline. So I had like kind of come to the decision to stick with Row
Hmm.
House. It was more complementary to what I did in theater. It's low impact. It
Hmm.
actually helped my dance, right? So like recognizing that I think was a big thing, that not all fitness is created equal.
Hmm.
And while something might be great for one person, it's not for everybody.
Hmm.
And so I was doing Row House, and then I booked my first Broadway show. So I was in the original cast of Holiday Inn, which I had
Yeah.
done a handful of regional productions of it, and was able to kind of follow the show all the way to New York,
Hmm.
which I'm super grateful for. And I was still coaching at Row House while I was doing that show. So I stayed
Wow.
with it. Um, and then when that show closed, because it was like a limited engagement
Hmm.
show, I booked one more theater gig like over the summer, and then I didn't have anything lined up for the winter, which as an actor, there's like, there's seasonality to auditions, right? Obviously Broadway shows are running all the time. And so there's always auditions for replacements and stuff like that. But replacements don't happen often. And, summer gigs are a big thing, right? So, in the winter you're auditioning for summer theater. And then, winter kind of dies out a little bit. Right. And so, and in the fall you're auditioning for spring. So if you don't have anything booked in the fall for spring, then you probably won't have anything booked in the spring. Right. And so I was just in a place where I didn't have anything lined up. And, Deborah had come to me and said, hey, we're going to do a deal with Exponential Fitness. And they need somebody to come do what you're doing on a grander scale, right? They need somebody to head up the education and the training and workout experience and all of that. And at first I literally was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm here to do theater. So no.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 24 hours later, I called her back and I was like, okay, maybe.
What was the shift? Right? What happened in the 24 hours?
I don't know. I think I just realized I didn't have a job lined up. And so I thought, what the heck? Let me just try it. Let me see what it looks like. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it's like, I'll just go try it. I'll go to California for the winter. And if I hate it, then I'll move back. Right.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah. But what I didn't realize is like when you're starting up a fitness franchise, like you're all in. I mean, it is like a whole nother level of grind, like just totally different level of grind, right? At least I'm getting paid for the grind. But I was all in, right? And so 6 years goes by, and within that time frame, I did have my daughter Austin. She's almost 4 now, and when she was about 2.5, actually when she was like 18 months old, I started to think, work it changed a little bit. At the beginning of our growth at Row House, it was like really exciting. And then COVID hit, and it just like totally destroyed so much of the foundation that we had built, and the momentum. I think that was actually, it was just like we completely lost momentum. And just like on a flywheel on a rowing machine, like when you stop the flywheel, it's so hard to like rev it back
get
up,
it going. Right? Yeah, it's heavy.
And I mean, and in many cases it didn't get revved back up. So or it did, but just not enough, and then eventually died out. So the brand really struggled after COVID, and during COVID and after COVID, which brought on just like another level of stress and challenges. And then in my personal life, I had my daughter, and then very quickly became a single mom, and that was hard, and I didn't have any family there, right? So it was like 18 months into that. I mean, I became a single mom when she was 7 weeks old. So we moved out when she was 7 weeks old. So, and with like no family, right? So it was, I think I was like in tunnel vision, just like grinding for a long time. It's so funny. I talk with moms now who tell me about like some of the challenges that they had that are different than mine, with like postpartum depression and anxiety and all of that. And I look back and I'm like, wow, it's such a blessing that I did not have that, because I would be in the hospital. Like, I don't know how I would have survived it. Right. But I think I couldn't have that, because I was just in such tunnel. I was like
you literally didn't have time.
Yeah. Like I wake up, I do this, I drop her off, I go to work, I pick her up, I come home, we eat, we go to bed. Yeah. Like that was it. That was my life. Right. And work was getting hard. Personal life was more challenging. And so when she was about 18 months, that's when I started to think, maybe this isn't it. Right. Like maybe I don't need to be doing Row House anymore, and maybe I can find something else. And I think I need to go home. I think I need to be around family. But it took me about a year to actually like come to that decision. Yeah. And when I did come to it, I was finally in like a very resolute place of, the way that I approached my job was basically saying, hey, I need to do this. I'm doing this. So I'm moving home. So you can keep me or not. I'd love to stay, but I have to go home. And here's why. Right. And so, and they were totally fine with it. They were great. And they made it work, even though it wasn't like something that they liked to do for people, right? They liked people to be in the office.
Right.
It just worked, right? Most of our franchisees were located around the country. I was constantly on calls. It's not like I was really meeting people in person except for our local studio. So that was tough to leave, but it totally worked out and made sense. And so I ended up moving in with my parents at, I think I was like 32 or 33 at the time, which was like a little bit of an ego bruise, but it's fine. But I was able to save money, and then a few months in, got a house. But I don't know. I just think life, like you think you know life, and then life happens and you look back and you're like, wow, I didn't know life. I didn't know what was going to go on. Right.
Is that not the truest statement ever?
Yeah. I think one of the lessons I've learned from it is I am really cautious to put judgment on anybody now, because the way that my life, and not that I wanted to put judgment on anybody ever, but I did. I, would look at moms with their kids on iPads in restaurants and be like, why are they doing that? Right.
Oh my God.
Well, I didn't have a kid, and I wasn't at a restaurant with a 3.5-year-old. Right. Like now I'm like, oh, we don't go to restaurants. We just don't go. Right.
You're like, now you can have the iPad, no scrolling, but like,
yes,
the rules change so quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, even the concept of moving back home. Right. And I really had to come to terms with, like, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to move back home. Right. It's not me giving up to want to be near family. That's not a giving up thing. Right. Like, in fact, me staying is giving up family. Right. So I think, there's if this, then this to everything in life, right?
Yes.
There's consequences, there's sacrifices everywhere. It's just a matter of like how you look at it. And man, any youngest of 4 children out there, biggest thing I can say is recognize that, like, your way is not the highway, right? And you might need help, right? And you can't just do everything on your own. And also, like, it's not the most fulfilling to do it all on your own, right? So sometimes it's good to, like, give in and let other people be in your life. That was definitely something that I've learned.
And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.